Next, I want to stop and demonstrate you the power of event system in the package tenancy for Laravel. I've showed it to you already a bit earlier in this course, but let's have an example of job pipeline and let's use the example from the existing ones. So for example, you can listen to event and have a lot of classes, a lot of actions executed on that event. And for example, if we open tenancy service provider by the package, this is what we've covered earlier in this course. So when creating the new tenant, we create and migrate the database. But let's try to delete the tenant and see what happens then. We have an event tenant deleted, and then in the job pipeline, we have delete database class. Will the database be deleted? And let's actually build the feature of cancel my account, of delete my account, really quickly without too much security and try to see if that event is actually fired. So first we generate a user controller or whatever controller to do that, and we'll have a method there. So user controller, for example, and we'll have a method destroy my account or something, public function destroy, for example, and then in here we will remove tenant, destroy tenant, remove from many to many. So detach, then destroy tenant, and then delete user. All that in transaction, of course. In routes web, we should add a new route, but that route is not global. It will be for tenant. So we need to create any new route for the tenant functionality in route tenant PHP, routes tenant here. So in here we create route get. Of course, notice what I'm doing here is not secure enough to delete the account. You have to make a lot of security checks before, but for the demonstration, I will just quickly create a new route without any security, so please don't do that. Do a lot of confirmations before that, maybe invitation by email to confirm the deletion, whatever. In my case, it will be just route get to account destroy, for example, to the controller of user controller class destroy, and with route name of, for example, account destroy, something like this. And then in the navigation, we add the link. Let's add that link to the drop down on the top right before the logout. So we copy and paste the drop down link just without the post. There will be a link to route account destroy. How did I call it? Account destroy. We don't need the prevention here, JavaScript, and delete my account, for example. And if we refresh the page, visually we'll have a link to delete my account, which for now doesn't do anything. Actually, if we click, it will be an empty page because it doesn't do anything. So let's go to our controller. Here, what we need to do. We can do for each of auth user tenants as tenant. We need to have a transaction, db transaction function use tenant. And what do we do with the data? First, we need to detach auth user tenants, detach the tenant ID from many to many. Then we need to remove the tenant itself, delete tenant delete from the database. But before we can delete the tenant, of course, we need to delete the domains, because this package, I will remind you, tenant has many domains. So we need to use domain model from the package. That's one way of doing that, domain where tenant ID equals tenant ID, delete. Then we can delete the tenant, and here's what will fire the database deleting. Hopefully, we will test it out in a minute. And then finally, we need to remove the user and log out and redirect to home page. So we can do auth logout. Then we need to have user delete, and that user will be auth user. We need to have a variable because if we log out, then we cannot use auth user anymore later. So user delete, and then return redirect to the route of homepage, for example. And that route should be a global route, not the tenant route anymore, because we don't have the tenant at this point. And let's assign the name to that homepage from Laravel, the default one, and this should be okay. Let's try it out. So we register as a new user with domain UUU, for example, subdomain, and here's the delete my account and let's see what happens. Actually, first, let's see what we have in the database. So we have the users, we have the tenant 3, great, tenant user 3, domain UUU, great. And we should have, if the tenant ID 3, we should have the database of tenancy 3. Yep, it exists with projects and tasks, great. And what happens if I delete my account? I'm redirected to homepage. That's good news. So let's close that and try to find that tenancy 3, and that doesn't exist anymore. The database was deleted successfully, and in the main database, if we refresh, there's no tenant user, and there's no user ID 3. So we successfully deleted the account with deleting of the database powered by that tenancy service provider. So in this fashion, you can create whatever job pipeline you want. It may be with one class, it may have more functions, it may be more jobs. It's your personal preference. And inside of that delete database is just a job, Laravel job with handle method, with constructor if you want that, implementing shoot queue. In my case, the queue wasn't enabled, so it was in sync. So just any regular Laravel job that you would add to job pipeline here.